All that glisters is not gold. The Dutch Golden Age saw the catastrophe of tulip mania, a period during which contract prices for tulip bulbs reached extraordinarily high levels, then suddenly collapsed. At its peak in March 1637, some tulip bulbs sold for more than 10 times the annual income of a skilled craftsman. Then, in 1720, a Scotsman named John Law took Dutch financing to a whole new level in Paris. Law, a reputed gambler, became Controller General of France, almost as powerful as the king. He created a huge financial bubble in an attempt to kickstart the French economy. The bubble burst, not in France, but in America, when Law's Mississippi trading went south. The collapse led to revolution in France and instability across Europe.
The biggest problem of Europe is indeed a lack of investments. That's really one of our biggest problems. And the Juncker plan was of course promoted as the investment program. Then we know politically there was a lot of pushback by member states, so therefore it was little fresh public money. But of course now the world is changing and we know it's not a lack of money around there in the world, but where to go to.
Today, Europe's unemployment rate is stubbornly high. Sluggish job gains cannot hide a lost generation of graduates, overstretched families, and the democratically disillusioned.
The problem was that throughout the recession, both governments and private sector failed to invest adequately in issues like research and development and in industry. And so therefore, the Juncker plan is there to address that problem.
How will you reach the 315 billion euros target? Was the question I was most frequently asked when I visited 28 countries in 10 months.
European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker's big idea is the investment plan. Basically, the EU coughs up some cash, governments and private investors add some more, and the European Investment Bank acts as a kind of insurer for leveraged debt. The gist of the plan, not unlike John Law's scheme, is to make a little cash go a long way, and in doing so, Europe's unemployment stress will evaporate. Critics say Juncker's plan is too slow to implement and not nearly big enough.
It was approved in July. The final senior appointments were only made at the back end of last year, and it really kicked in from the beginning of January this year. To date, I would say I'm extremely encouraged with the level of interest which we've had from SMEs who are taking up this funding. And that's critical because the heavy lifting of this European economic recovery, the creating jobs, creating growth, will have to come from that small business private sector.
Is the system not too complex for SMEs?
I don't think so. I think that here you really have a dedicated platform for SMEs, which also help build regional platforms, and this might boost the growth for SMEs and attract capital for them, because we need SMEs not only to be dependent on bank finance, but also much more on private equity, venture capital, capital markets in general, to boost their growth.
It's a very good opportunity. It's true, it's a credit, it's not a grant. It's a credit, but economy was in the history based on credits, not on grants.
Juncker's investment plan depends on the European Fund for Strategic Investments, which aims to mobilise at least 315 billion euros in additional investment over the next 3 years. The EFSI entered into force 6 months ago, and the European Investment Bank started pre-approval of projects as early as April 2015. The idea is to ensure this extra investment reaches the real economy.
It's not working, and all the problems that we predicted are basically there. So first of all, there's no additional investment. A lot of member states now push already planned public investment into that scheme so that Deutsche Bank or Allianz can invest into infrastructure, but that makes it dearer for the taxpayer because they also have to foot the bill for the return on investment of those private corporations.
National governments were just allowed to open the drawer, put old national projects on the table, and where are we right now? We don't have pan-European projects, we have old national projects.
We've seen that not a single project has been funded in Greece in countries that have so much need of investment.
The European Investment Bank estimates that by the end of 2015, the fund triggered around 50 billion euros of investment in Europe. Mobilization of private capital is a key feature of the plan and currently represents about 80% of the total expected investment value. But is private capital investing?
They will invest for sure if the projects will be attractive, if the projects will be solid and interesting, and for sure they will put the money.
Private investors will only participate in the Juncker plan if there is a clear yield for them, if there is a clear return on investment. And I think this makes the entire Juncker plan so shaky, especially in an environment of extremely low interest rates, because it brings about the question on whether governments should not actually do the investments themselves.
The plan is only now getting into high gear, but what's the state of play? Is Europe getting value for money, or is the Juncker plan a stopgap until something better comes along?
Until now, it still remains to be seen, of course, whether it will be a success. But I think one of the biggest problems remains is that there is not much fresh money into the pot yet. And in order to attract all kind of investors, you need some guidance. Where do we want to go to, and where does the fresh money come from? And I think there still the idea within the Commission and the Council for a real investment program is not there yet.
What message would you want to hear from the European Commission today?
Well, the message I would like to hear is we want to be the top business location in the world. We are ready to do whatever it takes to attract the capital, and we know what we'll be doing on our way forward.
We've got used to this idea that it's all gloom and doom in Europe and that this is kind of the lost decade. To some extent, it's true. But if you look around the world, China clearly slowing down, either soft or a hard landing. The US economy probably at the end of a positive business cycle, probably also slowing down. So to some extent, Europe is the region right now with maybe the best momentum.
In mid-2015, Bloomberg reported that a survey of 800 financial decision makers revealed that despite worries about Greece and the Eurozone, Western Europe is the most attractive destination for direct foreign investment. Western Europe has now overtaken China and North America as the investment destination of choice.
The fact that the markets in China have been closed several times, the fact that the markets in the United States are sometimes growing, sometimes declining, the fact that the markets in Europe are still very, very much unsustainable, shows that a possible coming crisis can come at any time.
We certainly have an opportunity here to attract capital because there's a lot of capital on its way. And in order to do so, we need to make sure that we underline that capital is welcome and that we are creating an environment which is able to attract this capital, and this means good projects, but before everything it needs a positive investment climate.
Crisis can sometimes generate well-being and economic growth if you know how to take advantage out of it. We have to anticipate this possible crisis. Southeastern Asia won out of the 2009 crisis. We can be the ones winning out of it if we manage to increase our productivity, know where to invest the money, and involve as many people as possible.
I think that Europe is really a good bet at the moment. I think we saw again stability, we have still a highly skilled workforce, a very active and very productive labor force. So in that respect, I think that Europe at this moment is the right place to invest.
Provide security, provide a long-term future, provide the certainty that the investors know my money in Europe is going to render to a large extent. And I think that's really the political assignment. And there, the Juncker plan still needs to fully grasp its potential.
Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy wrote, "Truth, like gold, is to be obtained not by its growth, but by washing away from it all that is not gold." The Juncker investment plan will soon reach its moment of truth. When all the hype and hope is washed away, what will be left? Jobs? A growing economy? Revolution? Is the European Commission, like John Laws, too slow to avoid disaster? Are we betting the future of Europe on slow-growing tulips? Or is the Juncker investment plan good soil for green shoots to grow?